video, I want to go over some more examples of paper 3 student submissions so you can get a better sense of what makes a really good paper 3 and what doesn't make such a good paper 3. So a poor example of a paper 3 would be something that kind of goes off topic, that doesn't really stick to the point, or something that doesn't have enough good evidence to prove the claim true. Let's look at an example of all of these things. The first thing we're going to start with is a CSE section that doesn't have enough good evidence to prove the claim true. So if you look off to your left side of your screen here, the student's claim is that the author of this article does a good job organizing information clearly. Okay, so we expect to see a bunch of proofs about why the section or article was organized clearly. This is the hardest claim to prove, and here's why. When you just go over how the author organized it, it's not good enough. That doesn't prove it's organized clearly. So people assume that if they choose this claim that they're just going to have to go over the structure of it, and that's going to be good enough. No. If you're going to say something is organized clearly, then you would talk about how the author organized their sources. That means it would take a lot of deep reading several times. And then you could say things like they organized all of the opposing opinions in one section and they organized all the agreeing opinions in one section. In addition to that, the organization put the thesis statement in perspective. So you would have to do a lot of critical thinking to understand how they interacted with their sources and how that supported their thesis statement. This is not the easiest claim to pick. It's actually one of the hardest claims to pick because you see people who are really good at analyzing arguments often analyze organization of papers. So let's look at what this student did. This student wrote, "First, the author of this article does a good job of organizing the information clearly. She starts by telling what the surgery is and how it has become more popular over the past few years. It then shows that because it has become more popular, companies are spending a lot of money on the surgery for their employees." So obviously there's some structural issues here, especially with pronouns. The author of this CSE section says she starts by telling, and then they change it to it. So then they're talking about the article as an it, not about the author anymore. So that's kind of odd. I ignore that, right? When you're learning writers, you're just beginning to grasp this stuff. You shouldn't be held accountable for if your grasp of language itself isn't fully developed yet. I care more about the content. If your ideas and I can see what you're thinking is on the right track, that's what I care most about. You're going to get good at the writing part of it the more you read. It just comes naturally. But what she does have, or he, I don't remember who wrote this, has going on here is beyond the structural issues, beyond the pronoun issues. They're just going over what the article said. It's like a step-by-step summary of what the article said. I would assume from reading this was done really last minute, or the student was unsure what to do. They thought they could pick organizing the information clearly as the claim and then just go over a summary. Again, not good enough. So as you see, if you pause this video and read the full example here, it really lacks any kind of clarification on why it would work well with their specific thesis in their specific paper. It's more of a summary. Let's read the end part. After that, it gives some possible solutions to the problem. Therefore, the article is well organized in that it proceeds in a step-by-step way to clearly state the problem, show both sides of the issue, and gives a solution. I'm not sure if they focused on that or proved that true at all. So that's a really poor example of a CSE paragraph. In addition, the author wasn't stated once. Remember, if you're going to do a good job of sounding ethical and professional, you always introduce the author of the paper and then you refer to that author by their last name instead of like she or he. It's okay to use a she or he, but never mentioning their last name at all. That's a little awkward. Let's look at a great CSE section. So this is one of the best ones I've had. The claim that the student's making here is that the reliability of the author, Dennis Anderson, makes the source strong, that the source's author that they plan to use is very reliable. So if I see you doing this claim, I expect you to really make a lot of commentary on what makes that author reliable. I expect deep attribution. So when I talked about attribution in earlier weeks, we talked about maybe introducing where they went to college, what degrees they have, where they work, or how long they've worked there. Whether or not they're renowned in their field, all those things are attribution items you could include. But if your main claim is going to be that the author himself or herself makes the paper great, then I expect to even see deeper attribution, deeper discussion of who this author is. So let's look at what makes this great. Perhaps the greatest strength of the source is reliability of its author, Dennis Anderson. The fact that Anderson himself was granted permission to become a member of a group of sharpshooters in the Twin Cities region is proof that he is experienced with the deer management program. Fantastic. So obviously this student has some very good writing skills. They know to use the author's last name. They also know how to kind of talk in a professional conversational tone. Therefore, that's great. That's a transition. It's saying that because this thing happened prior, what I'm going to talk about next is possible. So therefore is a lead-in that says because what was prior, what happens next is possible. Therefore, Anderson's firsthand experience with the situation makes it difficult to question the authority of information provided in the source. In addition, another transition, we're saying, okay, now he's going to keep talking about why Anderson is an authority. In addition, Anderson, who has been studying the wildlife and outdoors for more than 25 years, is a current outdoors columnist for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Anderson has held the position since 1993, after resigning as a columnist for the St. Paul Pioneer Press, where he worked from 1980 to 1993. This person really did a lot of great research on the author of the source. Obviously, this may have been even from multiple websites. A big problem I am seeing here is I don't know whether it was multiple websites because I'm not seeing citations. It was. They had to look around at several different places. But without citations, I don't know, in-text citations, I don't know whether it's one source they got this information from or several sources. You need in-text citations if you're looking up information from another person on the web. All those sources that you're finding the information from should be cited. Even if it is the author's personal bio page, then you even need to cite that. Anderson's title and work experience clearly add to the validity of the source. Furthermore, Anderson's superb work as a columnist has earned him great recognition, as he has received numerous awards and been a finalist for several others. For example, great transition. In 1989, Anderson was a Pulitzer Prize and specialized reporting finalist after receiving praise for several of his outdoors articles. That's big stuff, right? That probably should have led the CSC section. If you were a Pulitzer Prize finalist, that's the icing on the cake, right? So we should start out with big stuff, with the really hard evidence, assuming that your reader might not read to the end of your CSC sections. So as you see, this was done really great. Let's look at the CSC form here. Do they restate the claim at the conclusion of the CSC section to remind the readers what they were arguing in the first place? Let's look. I'm sorry. Due to Anderson's current position as an outdoors columnist for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, his many awards and achievements, and his involvement in the sharpshooters for a deer control group in the Twin Cities area, any questions regarding the validity of the source can be put to rest. Great. They restated, this is really intelligent. Not only did this author restate the claim by reminding the readers of the original claim, they added the key points of what they proved. So throughout the semester, when we get into the conclusion section, I mentioned it a few times, but when we get into the conclusion section, I really hammer it home. You should go over key evidence. This is what I mean. This is the example of how to go over your key evidence. You don't have to re-go over the evidence and cite it again, but generally, what did you say? What did you do a good job at? This right here is very intelligent. Restating the claim, but also going over the key evidence that prove that claim true.